next. And I don't give a damn if I get fined because that shit cheap. And I am tired of the shit because I've been nice and I've been humble with it, but I am tired of the shit.
Stephen A. Smith has officially reached his breaking point, and this time he isn't holding back. After what many are calling a series of calculated social media stunts from Angel Reese, designed to once again insert herself into the Caitlin Clark narrative, the First Take legend took to the airwaves to deliver a reality check that is currently rocking the sports world. The message was loud, it was clear, and it was brutal. Angel Reese, you are special, but you are not Caitlin Clark. For months, we've seen the media push a narrative that these two are on equal footing, two sides of the same coin, a modern-day Magic versus Bird. But Stephen A. just dismantled that entire premise in seconds. He didn't just point to the stat sheet. He pointed to the cultural phenomenon that is the Indiana fever. We're talking about a level of box office gravity that the league has never seen. A player who sells out arenas while her rivals play in front of empty seats, and a professional who keeps the main thing the main thing. While Angel Reese continues to lean into the villain persona and provocative branding moves that have even Stephen A. scratching his head, the gap between popular and transformational has never been wider. Is Angel a rebounding machine? Absolutely. Is she a star? No doubt. But as Smith so eloquently put it, there is a massive difference between being a great player and being the blueprint for the future of a billion-dollar industry. Today, we're breaking down the exact moment Stephen A. lost his cool, the stunts that triggered this viral explosion, and why the WNBA hierarchy is finally being forced to admit the truth. There is Caitlin Clark, and then there is everyone else. If there is one thing Stephen A. Smith is known for, it's his ability to cut through the noise with a level of volume and clarity that demands attention. But on a recent episode of the Stephen A. Smith Show in January 2026, the volume wasn't just high. The message was devastating. For nearly 3 years, the sports world has tried to force a co-star narrative between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. We've seen the side-by-side graphics, the debate over who truly owns the it factor, and the constant comparisons of their statistical output. But Stephen A. has finally had enough. After what many are calling a series of calculated, attention-seeking social media stunts from Angel Reese, ranging from provocative posts in Berlin to cryptic messages following team disciplinary actions, the First Take legend decided to lay the cards on the table. He didn't just criticize Angel. He put her in her place by defining exactly what she is, and more importantly, what she is not. And his conclusion was a hammer blow to the rivalry narrative. Angel Reese is a star. Angel Reese is valuable. But Angel Reese is not on the same level as Caitlin Clark. The stunt that triggered the explosion. To understand Stephen A.'s fury, we have to look at the stunts that set this off. We've seen a pattern emerging with the Chicago Sky Star. While Caitlin Clark has spent her offseason quietly building a historic legacy and preparing for a season that carries the weight of an entire league on its shoulders, Angel Reese has been a whirlwind of headlines, and not always for basketball. The latest stunt that pushed Stephen A. over the edge happened during the NBA's global expansion games in Europe. While the basketball world was focused on the sport's growth, Angel Reese was making headlines for her Euro Barbie tour. From eye-catching ensembles at the London Games to viral posts from the Berlin Winter, Angel was everywhere, except, it seemed, focused on the main thing. Stephen A. didn't hold back. I see you in Berlin. I see you in London. I see the Euro Barbie captions. And listen, you're a beautiful young lady. You're entitled to your life. But when your team is coming off a season where you're struggling to stay in the playoff hunt, and your primary focus appears to be courtside appearances at NBA games to fuel romance rumors with Wendell Carter Jr., you are telling the world that the brand comes before the bucket. Caitlin Clark is at the gym. Caitlin Clark is at the facility. Caitlin Clark is the box office because she treats the game like the box office. The professional versus the influencer. The core of Stephen A.'s critique centers on the difference between being a franchise player and being a celebrity athlete. He pointed out that Caitlin Clark, despite the unprecedented pressure and the vitriol she has faced from certain corners of the league, has kept her eyes on the prize. She doesn't engage in Twitter wars. She doesn't post cryptic messages. She doesn't try to manufacture villain storylines to stay relevant. She plays basketball. On the other hand, Angel Reese has leaned into the unapologetically Angel persona so hard that it has started to overshadow her actual game. Stephen A. argued that by embracing the influencer model at the expense of professional standards, Angel is actually alienating the very fans the WNBA needs to grow. What's not debatable, Smith barked, is the fact that Caitlin Clark has handled her branding with surgical precision. She is a professional. Whereas with Angel Reese, sometimes you find yourself scratching your head and wondering what the hell she's doing. When you do provocative shoots and then complain about being objectified, it's not going to work with the public. You can't have it both ways. You can't be a Barbie for the clicks and then ask to be treated like Michael Jordan when the criticism starts. The box office reality check Stephen A. Smith is, above all else, a businessman. He understands that at ESPN and across the sports landscape, they track the needle. He revealed that the internal metrics for Caitlin Clark content are unlike anything the industry has ever seen for a female athlete. When they talk about Caitlin, the numbers jump. When they talk about Angel, the engagement is there, but the value is different. It's often negative engagement. It's controversy. Stephen A. noted that there is a fundamental difference between fame and box office. When Caitlin Clark steps into an arena, the ratings don't just go up, they explode. The revenue follows her. The infrastructure of the league shifts to accommodate her. What we will acknowledge, Smith noted with a rare moment of quiet intensity, is that Angel Reese is popular. But she is not the box office attraction that Caitlin Clark is. If Caitlin doesn't play, the numbers collapse. If Angel doesn't play, the game goes on. That is the cold, hard reality of the business of basketball. You are a rebounding machine, Angel, but she is the engine, the gatekeeper of relevance. Stephen A. also touched on a nerve that many in the WNBA don't want to discuss: the fact that Angel Reese's popularity is largely reactive. He argued that Angel became a household name primarily because she was the one clapping back at the Golden Girl. By continuing to pull these stunts, whether it's the courtside My Man jerseys or the podcast drama, Angel is trying to keep that friction alive because it's her primary source of relevance. But Stephen A. warns that the Caitlin Clark rocket ship is moving too fast for Angel to stay attached to it forever. Eventually, he said, the novelty of the villain wears off, and all you're left with is your shooting percentage. And right now, that percentage isn't high enough to justify the noise. Closing part 1. The lines have been drawn. Stephen A. Smith has officially taken a side in the greatest debate in women's basketball history, and he didn't do it with a whisper, he did it with a roar. He has labeled Angel Reese an influencer and Caitlin Clark a phenomenon. In the next part, we're going to look at the financial consequences. How much are these stunts actually costing Angel in the 2026 CBA negotiations? We'll also dive into the secret meeting rumors. Did WNBA leadership actually have to step in because of the drama? And finally, we'll ask the billion-dollar question. Can Angel Reese ever bridge the gap, or has Stephen A. Smith officially called the time of death on this rivalry? While Stephen A. Smith spent the first half of his rant focusing on the social media distractions, he pivoted in the second half to something far more damaging to a player's reputation: the tape. One of the most stinging parts of his reality check was his dismantling of Angel's on-court value versus her off-court hype. Throughout the 2025 to 2026 cycle, a new term began to dominate the basketball discourse: mebounds. The term, popularized by analytics experts and now weaponized by Stephen A., refers to Angel Reese's tendency to grab her own offensive rebounds after missing multiple contested, low-efficiency layups at the rim. While the box score showed a double-double, the eye test showed a player struggling with the basic fundamentals of finishing. "We can celebrate the double-doubles all we want," Stephen A. barked, leaning into the camera. "But let's be honest about the shooting percentages. You're a post player shooting under 40% from the field. That is unheard of for an elite big. If you want to be mentioned in the same breath as Caitlin Clark, you can't just be a specialist in your own misses. Caitlin is transformational because she is efficient from 30 feet. Angel, you are struggling from 3 inches. Until the game catches up to the ego, the comparison is not just a reach, it's an insult to the game of basketball." The Jordan delusion. The disrespect reached a boiling point when reports surfaced that Angel Reese's camp had been floating comparisons between her impact on the WNBA and Michael Jordan's impact on the NBA. For a man who spent his career covering the 90s Bulls, this was the ultimate sin for Stephen A. Smith. "You are not Michael Jordan," Smith yelled, his voice echoing through the studio. Michael Jordan was the most efficient, dominant, terrifying force the world has ever seen while being a global icon. He didn't have to tell you he was the main character. The scoreboards did that for him. To even fix your mouth to say the name Jordan in relation to your career right now, when your team is struggling to find an identity and you're serving suspensions for detrimental statements, is the height of delusion. Stephen A. argued that this stunt, trying to claim a legacy that hasn't been earned, is exactly why the older generation of WNBA legends, from Cheryl Swoops to Diana Taurasi, have been so critical of the Barbie brand. It's not hate. It's a demand for a standard that Angel has yet to meet on the hardwood. The NBA 2K26 controversy, clout versus merit. The debate over the NBA 2K26 WNBA edition cover remains a massive flashpoint in this discussion. While Angel Reese celebrated her cover girl status with a series of high glamour posts, Stephen A. pointed out the glaring irony. The timing of the reveal coincided with a team-mandated suspension for Angel following a detrimental interview with the Chicago Tribune. "Think about the message you're sending," Smith shouted. "Your team is in a tailspin. Your coach is under fire. You've just been disciplined for being a distraction. And your first thought is to post about a video game cover? That is the behavior of someone who thinks they are bigger than the game. It's clout first, championship second. When Caitlin Clark gets a cover, it's a reflection of her being the MVP. When Angel gets a cover, it's a reflection of her followers. One is earned by the bucket, the other is earned by the click. The financial canyon, $28 million versus niche deals." Stephen A. Smith is never one to ignore the money. He addressed the financial gap that has become a canyon in early 2026. With Caitlin Clark's first Nike signature shoe, the CC1, set to drop and her record-breaking $28 million deal anchoring her portfolio, the rivalry is becoming economically impossible to justify. "Money talks and stunts walk," Smith argued. "Corporations are risk-averse. They look at Caitlin Clark and they see a 10-year, scandal-free, high-production investment. They look at Angel and they see volatility. They see social media drama. They see deactivated Instagram accounts every time she gets criticized. Nike doesn't give $28 million to people who are just popular. They give it to people who change the stock price. Angel is fighting for the lifestyle niche, while Caitlin is owning the entire sports landscape. There are levels to this, and Angel is currently stuck in the lobby. The reactive popularity trap. The most insightful part of Stephen A.'s reality check was his analysis of how Angel became famous. He reminded viewers that before the 2023 National Championship, Angel Reese was a talented player, but she wasn't a superstar. She became a household name the moment she taunted Caitlin Clark. "Her fame is reactive," Stephen A. said bluntly. "She is the Joker to Caitlin's Batman. But here is the problem. Batman can exist without the Joker. The Joker cannot exist without Batman. If Caitlin Clark retired tomorrow to go play golf, the interest in Angel Reese would plummet because her brand is built on being the antagonist. She has spent so much time being unapologetically Angel that she forgot she needs to be undeniably great to survive on her own." The locker room fallout. Stephen A. didn't just stop at Angel. He went after the culture of the Chicago Sky. He noted that the stunt culture is starting to infect the locker room. Reports have emerged that several veterans are tiring of the constant media circus that follows Angel, especially when the team isn't winning. "You can't be a leader if you're always the victim," Smith noted. Caitlin Clark was getting physically battered in her first season. She was being double-teamed from full court. Did she go to the Indianapolis Star and trash her teammates? No. She took the hits, she stayed in the gym, and she led her team to the playoffs. That is the difference between a superstar and a socialite. One builds a culture, the other consumes it. Closing part 2. The reality check is in full effect. Stephen A. Smith has stripped away the Barbie filters and left Angel Reese with a choice. Remain a social media influencer who happens to play basketball, or become the elite professional the world expected her to be. In the final part of this script, we're going to look at the Berlin blueprint. Why USA Basketball's coaching staff just made a decision that confirms everything Stephen A. is saying. We'll also examine the leaked messages from WNBA legends who are finally breaking their silence on Angel's behavior. And finally, we'll ask the billion-dollar question. Is there any way for Angel to win this war, or has Caitlin Clark already taken the crown for good? As we head into the heart of the 2026 season, the WNBA is no longer a niche league. It is a global business. And in business, numbers don't lie. Stephen A. Smith during a heated segment on First Take, decided to pull back the curtain on the league pass data. While Angel Reese has millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram, the actual viewership data for the Chicago Sky compared to the Indiana Fever is staggering. "You can have all the followers in the world," Stephen A. bellowed, "but if they aren't turning on the television to watch you play, you aren't a needle mover. You're a content creator." When Caitlin Clark plays, the ratings don't just go up by a percentage, they multiply by 5. The advertisers aren't buying airtime for your Euro Barbie outfits. They're buying it for the 30-foot logo threes that are redefining the sport. Angel, you have to understand, cloud is temporary, but box office is forever. Right now, you're playing for the algorithm, while Caitlin is playing for the history books. The 2026 CBA, the price of disruption. The biggest looming story of 2026 is the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, negotiations. The players are fighting for higher salaries, better travel, and a larger share of the league's exploding revenue. But Stephen A. Smith issued a stern warning that stunt culture could be the players' undoing at the bargaining table. He pointed out that when owners see a franchise cornerstone like Angel Reese being suspended by her own team for statements detrimental to the organization, it gives the owners leverage. How can you demand 30% of the gross revenue when your behavior is a liability to the brand? Smith asked. The owners want to invest in the Clark model: professionalism, reliability, and undeniable production. When you prioritize your personal brand over team cohesion, you aren't just hurting the Chicago Sky. You're hurting the pockets of every woman in this league. Professionalism isn't just a look, it's a currency. The 2K26 cover, a divided fan base. The controversy surrounding the NBA 2K26 WNBA edition cover remains a flashpoint for Stephen A.'s reality check. While Angel Reese celebrated her cover moment as a dream come true, the timing was disastrous. She posted the celebration just hours after being benched for the first half of a game against the Las Vegas Aces as punishment for her critical Chicago Tribune interview. "It's a lack of awareness," Stephen A. shouted. "Your team is disciplining you for being a distraction, and you're on social media celebrating a video game? It shows a disconnect between your priorities and the reality of being a professional athlete." Caitlin Clark didn't get the cover this year, and you know what she did? She went out and dropped 35 points. She didn't post a cryptic message, she posted a W. That is why she is the standard, and that is why you are still the rival and not the peer. The Team USA verdict: performance over persona. Perhaps the most putting her in her place moment of 2026 came from the USA basketball senior national team. As the roster for the World Cup in Berlin was finalized, reports surfaced that Angel Reese's name was notably absent from the core group, while Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers were solidified as the faces of the future. Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back on the reasoning. "The national team isn't a fashion show," he said with a cold intensity. "They don't care about your podcast ratings or your New Year's Eve dress. They care about whether you can shoot better than 40% from the field against the 6 feet 9 inches towers from China. In a FIBA system that demands spacing and elite finishing, Angels' mebounds don't work." The coaches saw the distractions, they saw the lack of offensive growth, and they made the choice. They chose the hoopers over the influencers. If that isn't a wake-up call for Angel Reese, nothing will be. The Jordan comparison, the ultimate sin. Finally, Stephen A. addressed the rumors that Angel's camp has been comparing her cultural impact to that of Michael Jordan. For a man who covered Jordan in Chicago, this was the final straw. "Stop it. Stop it right now," Smith yelled, his voice reaching a fever pitch. Michael Jordan was the most dominant, efficient, and professional force the world had ever seen. He didn't have to brand himself. His greatness branded him. To even mention Angel Reese in the same sentence as MJ, while she's struggling with team discipline and offensive efficiency, is a level of disrespect I will not tolerate. Caitlin Clark is the only one in the ballpark of that Jordan impact because she is actually changing the economics of the game. Angel, you are a great rebounder. You are a social media star. But you are not the GOAT. You're not even in the conversation for the top 5 in the league right now. That is the truth. That is the reality. The 2026 ultimatum: fix the game or fade away. As the video concludes, Stephen A. Smith leaves Angel Reese with a final ultimatum for the rest of the 2026 season. He tells her to put the phone down, stop the stunts, and get back to the bucket. The WNBA is expanding, Smith warned. Toronto is coming. Portland is coming. New superstars like Juju Watkins are on the way. These girls are pure hoopers. They aren't interested in the Instagram drama. They are interested in the championship. If Angel Reese doesn't stop the stunts and fix her offensive game, she is going to find herself replaced by a new generation that understands that the brand follows the ball, not the other way around. You've been put in your place, Angel. Now, the question is, are you going to stay there, or are you going to work your way out of it? Final closing for the video. And that is the definitive breakdown of why Stephen A. Smith finally hit the red alert button on Angel Reese. The 2026 season is the most scrutinized year in women's sports history, and the stunt culture is officially under the microscope. But I want to hear from you. Is Stephen A. being too hard on a young player just trying to build her brand, or is he the only one brave enough to tell the truth? Is the gap between Caitlyn and Angel a talent gap or a professionalism gap? Sound off in the comments below. If you think Angel is being targeted because she's unapologetic, let me hear it. If you think Caitlyn is in a league of her own, drop a hashtag Team Clark in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because with the 2026 CBA talks heating up, things are about to get very real. Thanks for watching, and stay locked in for the next one. The lines have been drawn, and Stephen A. Smith just dropped a hammer that is going to be felt for the rest of the 2026 season. But now the real question isn't what Stephen A. thinks, it's what you think. We are at a historic crossroads for the WNBA. Is this the moment the league finally moves toward a professional-first standard, or is the influencer model that Angel Reese champions the actual future of sports marketing? I want you to head down to the comments right now and let your voice be heard. If you agree with Stephen A., that there are levels to this game and Caitlin Clark has moved into a different stratosphere of greatness, drop a hashtag Team Clark below. But if you think that Chi Barbie is being unfairly targeted for her branding and that her impact on the game is being disrespected by the media, I want to see a hashtag Team Angel in the chat. Tell me, is the stunt culture hurting the WNBA's credibility, or is it the exact energy the league needs to stay relevant in 2026? I'm reading every single comment, and I want to see the best arguments from both sides. Before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. With the 2026 CBA negotiations intensifying and the CC1 sneaker release just around the corner, this is the only place you're going to get the unfiltered truth on the biggest beefs in basketball. Don't get left behind while the rest of the world plays catch-up. Join the community, stay locked in, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. Thanks for watching.